Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan Greiner, and welcome to my course, Using Adobe Analytics and Shared Audiences with Adobe Target. We've built this course in partnership with Adobe Digital Learning Services. Adobe Target is designed to make testing and adopting a culture of optimization straightforward and scalable. The key concepts that inform Adobe Target allow you to make the most of developing and testing solutions. We'll learn how to use Adobe Analytics reporting to analyze target activities and how to use the People Core service to achieve a complete 360-degree understanding of your customers to drive more relevant experiences for better engagement and improved ROI. Some of the major topics we'll cover include the creation of A4T tests, discussing the unified customer view the Marketing Cloud provides, how to share and use historical and real-time audiences, how to enrich the customer data for targeting, segmenting, and reporting by using customer attributes, and then how to implement, validate, and troubleshoot portions of the Marketing Cloud ID service. By the end of this course, you'll be better able to collaborate across your organization like never before in order to understand your customers and deliver more timely, resonant, and engaging experiences. This course assumes you already have a foundational working knowledge of Adobe Target and Adobe Analytics, including how to plan, build, and execute optimization activities. If not to worry, there are foundational courses available here in the library. I hope you'll join me today in learning more about leveraging Adobe Analytics with Target here at Pluralsight. Welcome to Using Adobe Analytics and Shared Audiences with Adobe Target. We'll be learning how to use Adobe Analytics reporting to analyze target activities and how to use the People Core services to achieve a complete 360-degree understanding of your customers to drive more relevant experiences for better engagement and improved ROI. This course is not designed to give you information about every button, link, and option in the Target interface. Instead, you'll receive explanations and examples to help you walk on your own in situations you will likely face as you strive to achieve a unified view of visitors across the Marketing Cloud. After completing this course, you'll be able to describe the capabilities that enable a unified view of customers across the Marketing Cloud, create A4T tests, share and use historical and real-time audiences from Adobe Analytics, Audience Library, and Audience Manager, enrich the customer data available for targeting, segmenting, and reporting by using customer attributes, implement and troubleshoot the Marketing Cloud ID service and A4T. So let's start off with a quick look at the big picture. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I want to give you a sense for where our discussion fits in terms of the overall strategy for the Marketing Cloud. Adobe's Marketing Cloud consists of 8 comprehensive and integrated solutions, but underlying that, tying those solutions together, you have these core services. Supporting all of these solutions and core services are data, content, and APIs, as well as the ability to bring third-party data and applications over into the Marketing Cloud platform. Our goal with the integration covered today is to make the two solutions, Adobe Analytics and Adobe Target, talk to each other within Adobe. The People Core service enables a marketer to leverage their data set to create this single, actionable view of their customer. It allows the delivery of contextually relevant and personalized content across all channels in real time. These Marketing Cloud audiences are distributable to all the solutions of the Marketing Cloud. We'll be focusing primarily on the way that Target uses the People Core service. So what does this mean for you? To the marketer, a single marketing view of the customer. They don't have different teams sharing different numbers and different thoughts of what exactly is going on. To the consumer, a better experience. They get a relevant and personalized experience regardless of the channel through which they engage with the brand. Here are the high-level benefits of using the Marketing Cloud ID service. In the past, there were multiple visitor IDs for each solution, which could be challenging to piece together. But in the current implementation, The Marketing Cloud Visitor ID service allows for a common Marketing Cloud level ID that can be used to tie data together across all Adobe solutions. If we know who they are and can present content to them in relevant but welcoming, non-invasive ways, that's a huge opportunity for them to have a much better experience with your website. Create granular audience segments and then to share them across all Adobe Marketing Cloud solutions. Ensure all content is visually consistent across all channels, so that could be web, ad, email, social, or apps, enabling A4T in our target activities, and then to deepen our relationships with our customers while we're growing our customer base. Most Adobe customers who have the People Core service also have Analytics for Target, or A4T. So what is A4T? A4T enables you to leverage Adobe Analytics as a reporting source in Adobe Target to drive the analysis of your optimization program. This means that you can view and analyze the performance of your target activities directly in Analytics. Here are some of the benefits for using A4T. You can launch tests faster. Using A4T, you are no longer required to set up all the segments or metrics that you might want to look at in a report before a test runs. You can think bigger. Analytics segments and metrics are now visible in Target alongside Target's audiences and metrics. You can dig deeper in your results. After a test is run, you can apply any segment or metric you have access to in Analytics and use it for target activity analysis. These segments can be even created after the test runs and applied retroactively to the test. Using A4T, the marketer can apply Analytics' powerful analysis capabilities to evaluate the effectiveness of target campaigns and reveal actionable insights regarding their customer base. So let's go over some basic terminology here. An audience is a group of visitors or customers. Audiences may be divided into two main types. There's the Marketing Cloud audience and the solution-specific audiences. So solution-specific audiences are those that are created within a particular solution such that their scope remains within that solution. For example, an audience created with Target is only available for use within Target. Marketing Cloud audiences are those that are created and shared such that their scope extends to other Adobe solutions within the Marketing Cloud. So for example, an audience created within Analytics and shared to the Marketing Cloud may be used by other solutions, such as Target. Marketing Cloud audiences are enabled by the People Core service. So Marketing Cloud audiences are the focus of this training, and they are classified as the following: historical audiences and real-time audiences. Historical audiences are those that are shared to the Marketing Cloud from Adobe Analytics. Real-time audiences are those that are either shared from the Audience Manager to the Marketing Cloud or created in the Audience Library using raw analytic data. In this section, we'll walk through the steps for creating a target activity that uses A4T. There are 3 steps in configuring an A4T A/B test. 1. Create. 2. Target. And 3. Goal and settings. It is important to note, however, that with the A4T integration in place, you can still create an A/B test using your target data. Let's walk through some of the steps for creating a target activity that uses Analytics for analysis. The steps outlined here focus on the differences in creating an A4T activity versus one that uses traditional target calls to track data. Note though, however, that with this A4T integration in place, you can still create an A/B test using your target data. Let's examine the key steps in configuring an A4T A/B test. In Target, to create an A4T A/B test, begin by selecting A/B test. After clicking A/B test, you're taken to the first step of the process, the create step. In this step, define your experiences as you would with a traditional A/B test. The target step looks exactly the same as when you create a target-based A/B test. Note that this is where you can use Marketing Cloud audiences. When you click to choose an audience for targeting, you're presented with a list of audiences available to you. The list of audiences include not only target audiences, so those created in Target, but also the Marketing Cloud audiences. This part of the process is enabled by the Marketing Cloud ID service, not A4T. In other words, if you have a Marketing Cloud audience, you will actually be able to target any kind of activity to those audiences, not just A4T activities, as we're focusing on in this section. The goal and setting step is where you specify that you want the activity to use analytics for analysis. In the reporting settings section, specify the reporting source as Adobe Analytics. Selecting Adobe Analytics as a reporting source is what makes this an A4T activity. So once Adobe Analytics is selected as a reporting source, the company, report suite, and tracking server must also be configured. So what exactly is different? When creating an A4T activity, it is not necessary to set up additional success metrics. Instead, you specify one metric in the form of your overall activity goal. Not only is there no additional metric section, but there's also no audiences for reporting section. In a standard target-based A/B test, the audiences for reporting section is the one in which you select report filters, so segments by which you want to examine your results after the test has begun to collect data. That section is moot when analytics is the data source, because now you can choose any reporting segment in analytics at any time when viewing your report results. This fact, along with the need to only define a single goal, explains why it's faster to launch A4T tests. You don't need to strategize segments and metrics prior to test activation, and you don't need to predict future analysis questions at the time that an activity is being configured. You can perform those steps later, or even by another team as necessary. Let's take a look at the results from our test. Here is a sample report for an A4T activity. The following two areas are slightly different from those of a standard target-based report. One, the report metric. Here we have orders, which was selected at the time of creation. And two, audience. Here we have all qualified visitors, which was selected by default from target. Both of these areas are available even when running an activity not based on analytics. However, the specific options you see after clicking them are different. So let's dive into the metrics of the report. If you click at the down arrow in the report metric area, it expands a drop down from which you can select a different metric on which to base the report. As previously mentioned, you do not need to define one goal for your activity. In fact, all metrics in your analytics account that are available when selecting the change metric option in a report are available here. Moving on to the audiences and report section. Clicking the down arrow on the audience area expands a drop down from which you can select a report filter to change the audience. But unique to A4T activities, the list of audiences includes all segments available in analytics for the report suite. Note this list is not the same as a set of audiences you may have shared to the marketing cloud. Instead, this list contains the analytics segments available when viewing reports in analytics, the segments you can apply to your analytic reports. So, segments can be applied retroactively, long after the activity is activated. If you then create a new segment in analytics, you can return to target to see how that segment performed in the test. By contrast, the segments you share from Adobe Analytics to the Marketing Cloud form a subset of this. Therefore, it is possibly a different list. More specifically, only the audiences someone in Analytics choose to share to the Marketing Cloud or were created through the Audience Library or Audience Manager and shared to the Marketing Cloud will be available for targeting tests during activity setup. Now, there is a terminology difference to keep in mind. These are called audiences in target, but the list that shows up here includes what are called segments in analytics. Now, there are some considerations to keep in mind when using A4T. Analytics counts visitors and visits differently from target. So in Adobe Analytics, a visitor is a site visitor regardless of whether or not they entered an activity. In Adobe Target, a visitor is a person who views a test experience. So in other words, with A4T reporting, visitors are scoped to have entered the test, but visits are not. Another consideration to keep in mind are the activity types supported with A4T. Currently, A/B, experience targeting, multivariate, and recommendation test activities support A4T, but at the present time, automated personalization, auto-allocate, and auto-target tests do not. At this point, you should be familiar with the fundamental steps involved in creating A4T tests and viewing those results. The creation of those tests involved audiences that may have been shared to the Marketing Cloud. In this section, we'll take a step back and show you how some of those audiences were created and published to the Marketing Cloud. We'll cover how to share audiences from Adobe Analytics, the data latencies to consider when planning activities for historical and real-time audiences, how to create audiences directly in the Marketing Cloud Audience Library, and how to share audiences from the Audience Manager. In Target, when an audience is listed as originating from the Marketing Cloud instead of from Target, that means that it was created and shared from one of the following: Adobe Analytics, Audience Library, Audience Manager. Regarding the three sources listed above, Adobe Analytics and the Audience Library interface are available through the Marketing Cloud. As long as you have Analytics, Target, and the correct services enabled, you will have access to both Adobe Analytics and the Audience Library. Audience Manager, however, is an added solution. as it confers additional value as a more robust service for creating audiences prior to sharing to the Marketing Cloud. So an audience that was shared to the Marketing Cloud from Adobe Analytics is a Marketing Cloud audience that is also a historical audience. That's the focus of this section. In Adobe Analytics Reports and Analytics, use the segment builder to create a new segment. Define the segment's title, description, rules, and tags, and determine whether it should be shared to the Marketing Cloud by checking the box labeled "Make this a Marketing Cloud audience" located at the bottom of the screen. Checking this box indicates to Adobe Analytics that this is an audience worth sharing, and saving will publish that segment to the audience library in the Marketing Cloud. By default, the look-back period is 90 days, although this value is configurable on a segment-by-segment basis. This means that if someone has met the audience criteria at any point within the past 90 days, they are included in the segment, meaning that Target will recognize their audience membership and deliver the content to them as expected when they reach the activity. The caveat to always bear in mind is that audiences shared from Adobe Analytics take up to 48 hours to become actionable. This means that if you use a historical audience to target your activity, it may take up to 2 days for a given visitor to be identified as being part of that target group. So what exactly is happening in the background during those 2 days? Starting from the left of the diagram, we see a representation of the analytics interface at the top left, with the analytic dataset in the bottom left, and an audience exchange service that sits between them. Twice per day, checking the box to share the audience from analytics results in Adobe adding the new audience to a list of audience exchange queries that are scheduled to run every 12 hours against the analytic dataset in order to obtain audience membership information. So, the maximum latency for any given visitor to be identified as qualifying for an audience is 12 hours. The next 12 hours, in the middle of the diagram sits the Adobe Audience Manager, or AAM, dataset, upon which the Marketing Cloud audiences are built. The completed audience membership file is shipped from the Exchange to AAM. The process whereby AAM uploads and ingests this file takes approximately 12 hours. And in the final 24 hours, in order for the data in the file to be actionable, it needs to be pushed out to the appropriate edge server in the GDN. This push process takes up to 24 hours. Adding up all the steps in the process results in the 48-hour data latency. So after the 48 hours, Adobe Target can hit the particular AAM server that it is closest to in order to ask for audience membership information. So in summary, there is significant data processing and movement before audience membership information for audiences that were shared from analytics can become actionable in Target. The entire process, end to end, from when you check the Adobe Analytics box to share the segment to when the data becomes available on a specific server, may take about 48 hours. This is a rolling 48-hour window, which is rolled every 12 hours according to the schedule of the Audience Exchange service. So when do the audiences appear within the audience library? Audience titles and descriptions are sent to the Marketing Cloud immediately without having to wait for the 48 hours. The audience membership is not sent right away, just the title and description. This allows audiences to be configured for targeting without having to wait. And as previously mentioned, every 15 minutes, Target pings the Audience Exchange looking for changes, at which point those audience titles and descriptions are obtained and become available for use in Target. Analytics will continue to be the go-to solution for historical behavioral data. It's truly the most robust solution to use in your targeting efforts because of its ability to look across segments even after a campaign has completed. So you can publish an analytic audience and use it in Target to deliver content to that group of people. The combination of analytics and Target is really powerful. So some basic considerations to keep in mind when choosing a historical audience from within Target. Audience titles and descriptions are sent to the Marketing Cloud immediately. This allows audiences to be configured for targeting without having to wait for audience membership processing. Every 15 minutes, Target pings the Audience Exchange looking for changes, at which point the audience titles and descriptions are obtained and become available for use in Target. Also, note that it may take a few minutes, at the most 15, for audiences to appear in Adobe Target when shared to the Marketing Cloud from Analytics. Again, any audience shared from Analytics could take up to 48 hours to become actionable. As an additional consideration, you can only have 20 of these audiences running at any given time. That's not a limit on the number you can share, meaning you can publish as many analytics segments to the Marketing Cloud as you want. That's just the number of audiences that the Marketing Cloud will support in active campaigns. Let's go through a little demo on how to build an audience from Analytics and push it to the Marketing Cloud. Once we're in Analytics, we're going to navigate to the nav. We're going to select Components and then down to Segments. This is going to take us to our segment builder. Once we're here, let's go ahead and click Add, and then we'll name our new segment Historical Audience Test. And then let's go ahead and just put NA for description for now. I'm going to build this by using the browser type and set up my definition to only be grabbing visitors who are using Google. Again, the key here is to check the box at the bottom to save this audience to the Marketing Cloud. Now that we've created our segment, let's go ahead and check Target to verify that our segment is available. One thing to keep in mind is that there is up to a 15-minute delay. I've taken that into account as I've recorded this demonstration. Once we're in Target, let's navigate to our Audience tab and see if our segment is at the top of the list. Awesome. Now we've got this audience available and we can use it for any of the activities we create within Target. Let's talk about how to create audiences directly in the Marketing Cloud Audience Library so they can be used by other Marketing Cloud solutions. So what exactly is a real-time audience? By way of review, the Audience Library is a Marketing Cloud level interface for Marketing Cloud audiences. Audiences can be shared from multiple sources and aggregated here. In terms of the source field, note the following values: Marketing Cloud or Audience Library, Audience Manager or Adobe Audience Manager, and Analytics or Adobe Analytics. A Marketing Cloud audience either created natively within the Audience Library using raw analytic data or shared from the Audience Manager to the Marketing Cloud is called a real-time audience. Unlike historical audiences, real-time audiences demonstrate a near real-time audience qualification capability. More than just a repository for audiences that have been shared across the Marketing Cloud, the Audience Library also lets you create new audiences, combine existing ones to create composite audiences, and view historical audiences, all in a very visual interface. Rules can be defined with multiple criteria, using and/or logic to combine those criteria. This screenshot shows a great example of the Audience Library's size estimation. In this example, the user has created an audience based on the intersection of 3 distinct criteria. Size estimates are provided not only for the defined audience, but also for each individual criterion. One use case for creating a composite audience based on a combination of raw analytics data and Marketing Cloud data involves a strategy for addressing the fact that the actual audience IDs from historical audiences are sent twice per day. If your goal is to create a real-time or next-click targeting campaign based on such data, you can combine this segment definition used in that historical audience with real-time attributes coming in from the raw analytics data stream. Do this in the Audience Library interface by combining the existing analytics audience with the raw analytic data using a union or condition. This kind of intentional redundancy in the underlying audience definition results in closer to real-time audience membership validation and activity entry. Along similar lines, one could also create a composite audience where a historical audience is combined with an audience shared from the Audience Manager based on the same segment definition criteria. This composite audience would immediately begin qualifying visitors due to the Audience Manager portion of the audience, and later receive its batch of historical data when such data is eventually sent from analytics. In the example shown above, if logged in iPad is a historical audience, then the composite audience will be bound by the 48-hour latency of the historical audience due to the AND condition. If the condition were changed to OR, then the composite audience would immediately begin qualifying visitors based on the raw analytic data portion of the rule, and later receive its batch of historical data when the data is sent from analytics. Let's chat about some of the benefits and considerations for using the audience library. First, the benefits. You're able to use the audience library when you want to create a real-time or next-click audience. The tool is flexible enough that the composite audiences that you can create can be a combination of both real-time and historical audience membership, though if that's what you would like to specify. And also it provides a graphical view of the estimated audience size, which is a huge benefit. Next, let's chat about the considerations. This type of functionality will allow for next-click targeting, as previously mentioned, in which the visitors can be matched into audiences immediately or upon the next click, depending on the location of your page tags. And again, you'll have limits on the number of native audiences that can be active, which is 50, as well as having limits on the number of rule or traits, which is 100, defined in active audiences. If that becomes a hindrance in any way, note that upgrading from the Audience Library service to Audience Manager removes those limitations. It's also important to note that the destinations are limited to the Marketing Cloud solutions. You can't send these segments outside of the Marketing Cloud. For that, you need an Audience Manager. Now, Audience Manager segments are groups of people who share common attributes. They are defined using combinations of one or more traits. Traits qualify signals. They are filters that catch the signals you care about. Signals are the building blocks that come through to the Audience Manager. Signals are key value pairs. So let's go over some examples here. For signals, you could have gender equals female, member equals platinum, or member equals gold. Some trait examples for those would be the trait women, defined to catch the gender equals female signal, or the trait platinum level, defined to catch the member equals platinum signal. So a segment level example would be the segment platinum level women, defined as the women trait and the platinum level trait. In Adobe Audience Manager, or AAM, you may view and manage all Marketing Cloud audiences, both real-time and historical. You may also create real-time segments that you may then share back to the Marketing Cloud. So what are the benefits exactly of sharing with the Audience Manager? Well, in the Audience Manager, you get all the functionality of the Audience Library plus additional data sets. The benefit here is that you can augment profile data with a lot of additional data, since that the Audience Manager includes the ability to add second or third-party data to define audiences. A lot of segment third-party data is already connected into the Audience Manager, which you can then use to leverage. It also allows for off-site destinationing and lookalike modeling. Off-site destinationing is a functionality that enables you to send an audience outside of the Marketing Cloud to a third-party system via ad server, DSP, ad network, and so on. Lookalike modeling is functionality in which Audience Manager can then take the rules you have defined, determine the set of people who share the characteristics in such a way that they are similarly predictive, even if they are not defined exactly the same, and use that information to expand the scope of your targeting. It's a way to broaden your audience in order to get more people to see your ad, while still adhering to the spirit of the rules that you've defined for that audience. As with Audience Library, Audience Manager enables real-time targeting with the integration to Target. So now the consideration. Audience Library does not replace Audience Manager. In Audience Library, you can do a lot of great things with the raw analytic data, as previously mentioned, but you can't use the third-party data or perform lookalike modeling as you can do in the Audience Manager. Audience Manager is an opportunity for more robust targeting options as you become more experienced and want to expand your use of shared audiences. Audience Manager is definitely something to consider if you're really excited about the capability of segmentation and getting as much value out of sharing your audiences across the Marketing Cloud as possible. But a fair warning: to avoid unexpected behavior, Do not delete audiences from within Audience Manager unless they were created inside the Audience Manager. Now let's talk about some of the data latencies regarding real-time audiences. Real-time audiences operate very differently from historical audiences. When real-time audiences are created to the audience library, that is, when raw analytics data is used to create a Marketing Cloud audience, or when segments are created and shared from the Audience Manager, there is no batching or scheduling involved. Audience data does not need to be uploaded or processed. Instead, real-time audiences are defined by sets of rules. There are no IDs that need to be distributed. The rule set propagates very quickly through the GDN, taking only about 30 minutes to be pushed to the necessary servers. This is next call availability. The segmentation itself happens in real time, within milliseconds. By then, the target call is usually gone for that specific page. But the next time target asks for the audience membership, the update is available. So it's important to remember, the latency described in this section applies to real-time audiences, meaning those that were created in the audience library based on raw analytics data, or those that were shared from the Audience Manager. If you create an audience library audience that references not only raw analytics data, but an audience shared from analytics, you could be subject to the 48-hour latency inherent with audiences shared from analytics. Let's go through a little demonstration on how to create a real-time audience using the audience library. Once in the Marketing Cloud navigation, let's navigate to the Audience Manager. Now inside the Audience Manager, let's select Manage Data. So there's two ways that we could do this. One is creating an audience through the Segments option, or the other is through Traits. For now, I'm going to create this segment through Traits. In order to create this segment, I need to select a trait by which it operates. I'll scroll down and select Browser equals Google Chrome. Then I'll scroll back up and select Create Segment. I'll name this test Google Chrome Test JG and select to have this segment save in the audience library by selecting its folder. And then I'll hit Save. Now, let's navigate to the audience library in the Marketing Cloud and validate. And there it is. Just to point out real quick, you can see that under the source, it says that our test was created in the Audience Manager. Now let's head over to Target and verify the information is showing appropriately. There's our audience, so we're good to leverage that now in Target. Now if you create an audience and don't see it display immediately, don't worry, there may be a delay of a few minutes. To wrap up, we've just completed building a real-time audience in the Audience Manager to leverage in Adobe Target. Now let's demonstrate how to upload customer attributes from external systems to further enrich our understanding of our customers and target them more effectively. After completing this section, you'll be able to describe customer attributes, upload customer attributes to the Marketing Cloud, and use the customer attributions to target visitors more effectively. Target users have a lot of first-party data about their customers that they want the Marketing Cloud to use to make better decisions for targeting and to better understand their analytics data. The Customer Attributes feature makes it easy for customers to upload that data only once and use it in Analytics and Target. Previously, Target users could only use the Bulk Profile Update API, but that data was exclusive to Target. Also, APIs can be more difficult for customers to integrate with than an FTP-based approach like customer attributes. So for example, you might use customer data such as membership status, purchase history, favorite destination, local store, and so on in your CRM or e-com system. But now you can upload that data to the Marketing Cloud. After the user authenticates on your site, Target can match that data to their web behavior. You could use the customer attributes for the following use cases. Membership level, understand the promotions and landing pages that resonate best for platinum level customers. Age and gender, identify which products and accessories do not appeal to male millennials and replace them with ones that do. Job function, Determine how managers and senior managers are leveraging the new mobile app and which features are most popular. Propensity score. Understand the pathing behaviors of visitors with high propensity scores who fail to convert. So we can break down the workflow for uploading enterprise data from a CRM system to the Marketing Cloud in about 4 easy steps. Step 1, create data files. Step 2, create the attribute source and then upload the data. Step 3, validate the schema. And step 4, configure the subscriptions and activate the attribution source. Step 1, create the data files. All data files should be in a CSV format with the customer ID to be matched in the first column. Step 2, navigate to the Marketing Cloud Customer Attribute Sources page where you can manage and edit existing attribute data sources. Configure the fields to define your source. The alias ID is the same as the integration code for the Marketing Cloud ID service customer ID, which you would have been previously identified when configuring the Marketing Cloud ID service customer settings during implementation. Step 3, the validation process lets you map friendly names and descriptions to uploaded attributes, strings, integers, numbers, and so on. This mapping process does not alter the original data. On the Validate Schema page, each row of the schema represents a column of the uploaded CSV file. Edit the display names and descriptions to your liking, then click Save. Note that the names you apply to strings, integers, and numbers are used to create analytics metrics. These metrics will appear in Visitor Profile, then the Customer Attributes reports. For this reason, it is a good practice to specify the appropriate data type, such as a string, list of strings, numbers, a record, and so on. Step 4. Configuring a subscription enables customer attribute data to be passed between the Marketing Cloud and other solutions, such as Adobe Analytics. So for example, an analytics subscription enables customers' attribute data to appear in the analytics report. If you don't configure an analytics subscription for a source, the customer attribute data in that source will not be sent to analytics. Adobe Analytics and Adobe Target are the first solutions with the subscription service available for customer attributes, with more solutions planned for the future. When configuring subscriptions and selecting attributes, the following limits apply depending on the solutions you own. Analytics Standard, there's 3 total. Analytics Premium, there's 200 per report suite. Target Standard, there's 5. And Target Premium, you have 200. So here's a tip. You can also upload data via FTP after you create a customer attribute source and an FTP account in the Marketing Cloud. You create 1 FTP account per attribute source. The uploaded files are stored in the root folder of that account. The data must be in CSV format with the section .fin file to indicate the upload is complete. Now let's jump in and upload some customer attributes. I'm going to upload some customer attributes to Adobe Target by creating a customer attribute source. Now recall the steps involved in the customer attribute workflow that we just discussed. We're going to create the data file, create the attribute source, and then upload the data file, validate the schema, and then configure the subscription. So I've already got some dummy data here for my data file. Now I just need to create my customer attribute source and upload that data file. Once in the Profile and Audience section of the Marketing Cloud, I'll go ahead and navigate to the Customer Attributes section at the top. This is where I can manage and edit existing attribute data sources. I'll go ahead and click New, and then fill in a name, description, and alias ID. Note that your alias ID should be unique, lowercase, and have no spaces. Now to upload the data file. Once your data file has been validated, feel free to edit the display names and descriptions to your liking. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and click Save. Let's configure a subscription. Once here, you'll notice that you have the option to select Target or Analytics. For today, I'll stick with Target. And I'm going to add just a few attributes now before saving. And there we go. Keep in mind that my new customer attribute is listed here on the customer attribute page. In Target, when an audience is listed as originating from the Marketing Cloud instead of from Target, that means that it was created and shared from one of the following: Adobe Analytics, Audience Manager, Audience Library. Regarding the three sources that we just discussed, Adobe Analytics and the Audience Library interface are available through the Marketing Cloud. As long as you have Analytics, Target, and the correct services enabled, you'll have access to both Adobe Analytics and the Audience Library. Audience Manager, however, is an added solution as it confers additional value as a more robust service for creating audiences prior to sharing to the Marketing Cloud. Let's jump in and create some target audiences by leveraging our customer data. Once in Target, head to the Audience option in the navigation. Once there, we'll go ahead and create a new audience. When it's time to create our audience leveraging the customer attribute data, we'll scroll down and select Visitor Profile. Note the naming convention for the customer attribute profile parameters, each is prefixed with a customer attribute source name. For example, I've already uploaded a customer attribute source and named it C-Test. In this list, I'll see all available data points in my C-Test upload because they'll be labeled C-Test dot then whichever data points I've activated. For demonstration purposes, we'll go with C-Test Country. I'll wrap this up by selecting equals, and then United States, and then I'll click Save, and there we have it. After you upload the customer attributes, validate the schema, and define a subscription, the system creates metrics based on friendly names, such as age, gender, or region, you map to the attribute string and integers. These metrics appear in the customer attribute reports in Adobe Analytics. To navigate there, you'll select Visitor Profile, then Customer Attributes, then select the desired report based on your established data. While customer attributes are not subject to the same kind of data latency considerations as historical audiences, they are subject to an initial synchronization latency. This process may take up to 12 hours. For example, suppose that RedCap has customer attribute information about a visitor, Shay Prowse. The first time the RedCap marketer uploads customer attribute data about Shay, there will be a 12-hour delay for that data to be processed and prepared. When Shay authenticates on a new device, the aliasing event takes place. Shay's Marketing Cloud ID is tied to her unique customer ID, and those additional attributes associated with her customer ID will become available for analysis in Adobe Analytics or on-page decisioning using Adobe Target. As another example, suppose Cindy goes to a web page on a new computer. She gets her MCID, but she is anonymous other than that. Any decisioning on that page happens on her MCID, but at some point, she logs in, so she authenticates. At that point, her customer ID becomes connected to the MCID in the same fashion as Shay's example. As soon as a match happens, all of the additional attributes are added to the consumer's profile. Before that, all the attributes are waiting to be assigned to a specific Marketing Cloud profile. But once Cindy authenticates, Adobe is able to match all relevant customer attributes to her, which then becomes available in her profile from that point onward. While these new audience creation options are quite powerful, the additional choices they provide for creating audiences leads to some new questions. Namely, now that I have the ability to choose audiences from multiple solutions, how do I decide where I should create them? There are a number of factors that play a role in that determination, such as the user's overall comfort and experience with the interface, the intended use of the audience, timing and portability requirements, and so on. Here are some general considerations to keep in mind when determining where to create audiences. Think about the type of questions we're trying to answer with the audience. If you find yourself asking, is the person a new or return visitor? Is the person on a mobile device? Is the person in a particular geography? Then Adobe Target may be the right place to build such an audience. Target is still the fastest way to make decisions on current visitor profile information. If you find yourself asking, did the person just look at a particular page? Did the person just add something to their cart? Did they just apply for a credit card or loan? Then these types of questions can be answered very well with audiences created in the Audience Manager and Audience Library. Qualification in Audience Manager or the Marketing Cloud happens as the data flows into the system. When raw analytic data is involved, it usually takes place on the analytics call, which is typically at the bottom of the page. If you find yourself asking, has a person recently abandoned my site? Has a person in the last few days searched or researched a particular product or service? Then Adobe Analytics is a great place to create these kinds of audiences. In other words, if you find yourself asking questions about recent activity, such as 48 hours ago or longer, then you want to use analytics to identify audiences based on the kind of historical data. Keep in mind that there is an inherent processing delay from the time someone qualifies for an analytic audience to the time that qualification becomes actionable. If you are segmenting on slowly changing dimensions like loyalty status, marital status, geography, and so on, dimensions whose values for a given visitor do not change very often, that makes analytics a good candidate for identifying such visitors. By contrast, for data that is inherently more responsive or changeable, or for which you want to take action within 48 hours of it occurring, you'll want to choose one of the other two methods for creating an audience. Let's go ahead and review some of the pros and cons for the audience creation options that you have. Consider Adobe Target as the audience creation tool for situations involving data that needs to be utilized immediately. This could include parameters such as geography or category affinity. Target handles such immediate attributes especially well. However, keep in mind that not all of these values will be immediately accessible. Sometimes the marketer has to do some of the work, including profile scripting, in order to obtain the desired segmentation information. Also, at this time, Target is a consumer of audiences in the Marketing Cloud, but it cannot push its audiences back to the Marketing Cloud for sharing with other solutions. So specifically focusing on Audience Library real-time audiences, those that are created using raw analytics data from the Audience Library, these provide a great way to use EVARs or events directly from the page in order to define segments. This works very well in next page targeting scenarios. The con here is that the marketer is limited to using EVARs or events. So in the future, the scope of the capability may be extended. But now, in terms of limitations, any audiences created here must stay within the Marketing Cloud. Only other Marketing Cloud solutions can use these audiences. Adobe Audience Manager, or AAM, enables much more advanced segmentation capabilities. For example, suppose you want to segment visitors who have visited your business card page, but have done so 3 times in the past 5 days. This is a much more precise and sophisticated question that goes beyond merely asking whether or not they have been here. Not only does AAM allow for this kind of advanced logic, but it also has an algorithmic modeling capability to get better segmentation. There is also third-party data that can be onboarded. Regarding the analytics tag, all types of data may be used, including not only EVARs and events, but also sprops, URLs, and so on, whereas Audience Library real-time audiences are limited to EVARs and events. AAM is also able to syndicate its audiences anywhere, even outside of the Marketing Cloud. AAM provides for all capabilities of Marketing Cloud real-time audiences, plus additional capabilities. Note though, if you are a user who is most familiar with Adobe Target, perhaps you may not have access to AAM within your organization, or perhaps you're not as familiar with the AAM user interface. In such case, when you need to create an audience, you can put in a request to your AAM team, but if it's something that's based on EVARs or an event, you may also have the option of using the Audience Library to create that audience on your own. The Audience Library is so intuitive and easy to use that it provides accessibility to a larger pool of users. Bottom line though, users always have the option of using the Audience Library, even if they also have access to AAM. Adobe Analytics does things that no other solution can do, such as pathing, segmentation based on a long history of interaction data, segmentation that leverages processing rules, classifications, and so on. These are unique in the Marketing Cloud. The caveat to always bear in mind, however, is the 48-hour delay regarding audiences shared from analytics. It is important to remember, for target power users who are also familiar with analytics, there may be the temptation to use analytics to build audiences because of that familiarity. Therefore, it is all the more important to ensure that 48-hour latency for audience membership identification still aligns with your goals for activity. If it does not, then use real-time audiences instead of analytics to achieve more immediate audience membership verification. So how well do you think you've grasped these concepts? Let's take a little quiz to find out. So here are your instructions. For each of the following business scenarios, determine whether Adobe Target, Audience Manager, Audience Library, or Analytics would be the best choice for targeting the audience described. I've put about 5 seconds at the end of each one of these questions before I show you the answer. So if you need additional time, be sure to pause this course to allow yourself the necessary time needed. Question 1. I am interested in targeting people who have made total orders in excess of $1,000 within the past month. The answer is Adobe Analytics. Question 2. Let's show this offer only to those visitors who have just started a registration process. The answer is AAM, or the Audience Library. In the Audience Library, you can make real-time audiences from events. You may also be able to do this from Target if you can identify the start of the registration process from the page URL. Question 3. This activity should resonate with most individuals from Japan who are browsing the site from their phone. The answer, Adobe Target. And then finally, our fourth question. I want to put people in an experience based on these customer attributes. Should I use Target or Analytics to create the audience? The answer is Target. If you can achieve the same audience definitions using either Target or Analytics, choose Target because of the data latency considerations regarding historical audiences. At this point in the course, we've created tests, viewed results, shared audiences, and used the Marketing Cloud audiences for targeting. In this section, we'll walk through the major steps involved in implementing the integration and services that made the exercises in the previous modules possible. There are many steps involved in order to enable the integration and associated services, but most steps occur behind the scenes and are handled by your account manager, consulting, or Adobe Client Care. This section focuses on the portions that you, as the Adobe customer, will be involved in most directly. From an implementation perspective, you will be required to make updates to these 3 JavaScript libraries. VisitorAPI.js, which enables the Visitor ID service. This JavaScript must be loaded before any other Adobe calls. The App Measurement library to replace the S code, if applicable, and the AT.js, which replaces the current AT.js or Mbox.js. Note that if you are using DTM or any other tag management tool, taking care of these code changes is much easier and much more streamlined. For latest version requirements and implementation guides, search Marketing Cloud Online Help for Marketing Cloud ID service. Implementing the Marketing Cloud ID service involves adding a JavaScript library to the page header and ensuring it loads prior to all other Adobe tags. Customers using DTM can take advantage of its native support for the Marketing Cloud ID service by adding and configuring the tool with the information such as Marketing Cloud Organization ID, automatically populated when the user is logged into the DTM via the Marketing Cloud, Analytics Tracking Server, both secure and non-secure. Note that the secure Analytics Tracking Server should only be filled out if the customer uses first-party cookies, and the Marketing Cloud Server for first-party tracking servers. Where can we find the code for VisitorAPI.js and AppMeasurement.js? In this exercise, we'll walk through the high-level steps for implementing the Analytics and Target integration. For both of these libraries, it's as easy as going to Analytics and navigating to the admin tools. Go ahead and navigate to the Code Manager once inside Analytics, and within which you'll see a list of JavaScript client libraries. The one you want is the one at the top, JavaScript New. That package contains both the App Measurement and Visitor API files. Once downloaded, place it on your web server in the location the pages of your website refers to, or in your tag management system so that your pages have access to it. If this is an existing implementation, It should replace the earlier versions of the files that currently reside there. If you are not familiar with Adobe Analytics implementation principles, find the analytics expert in your company or call client care for assistance. Let's go ahead and grab the at.js file. Go ahead and navigate to Adobe Target. Once there, let's go up to the Setup option in the nav, and then down to Implementation. Let's go ahead and select the at.js under the implementation method, and then download at.js. Again, once downloaded, you're going to place it on your web server or in the tag management system, and replace any earlier versions if there is an existing implementation. Moving into validation. Once an implementation has been done, there are some quick steps you can take to make sure it was a success. The validation can be approached in two parts. Solution level validation, which is verifying that the segment sharing is taking place between analytics and target, and call level validation, which is navigating to the web page and using a debugging tool to make sure the right calls are being made and that those variables are being passed. Let's go through a solution level validation. As we've demonstrated in previous modules, let's go ahead and validate a historical audience. We'll build an audience segment in Analytics and then push it to the Marketing Cloud. We'll then head over to Target and confirm that segment is available. Don't forget when building your historical audience to check the box at the bottom to make it available in the Marketing Cloud. Keep in mind, there is up to a 15-minute delay for that audience to be available in Target. Now to validate A4T. Let's create a new analytic-based activity in Target and hop over to the goal and settings page. We want to confirm that we are able to see Adobe Analytics under our reporting source, and then to validate our reporting suites are displaying appropriately. Now for a call level validation. Navigate to the web page and use a debugging tool to verify the right calls are being made and that the expected variables are being passed. Here are some general steps to follow. In Chrome, I'm going to launch an incognito window. The shortcut is Shift-Control-N, and that's going to give you a fresh set of cookies for debugging. Once on your web page, right-click the mouse to get the Chrome Dev Tools to inspect. I'll go to the Network tab and use the regex search to filter the network calls made by Target, Analytics, or Audience Manager. Here's the expression I'll use to search. mbox pipe b/ss pipe dem dex. I'll now need to navigate to a different page or click Command R to refresh this page. I'll locate and inspect each of these for Target and Analytics. For Target, I'll check for the mbox/mcg vid and mbox/mcs did. I'm going to compare these values to the corresponding analytic values for MID and SDID because they should match. For Analytics, check for MID and SDID, and you're going to compare those values to the target values we just pulled. Along with the Marketing Cloud Visitor ID, you can set additional customer IDs to associate with each person. The library accepts multiple customer IDs for the same visitor. These customer IDs are applied as people visit your site and authenticate. So why might I need to configure multiple customer IDs? You may have multiple systems that interact with your website. Suppose you want to use the data from your CRM, call center, and point of sale systems with customer attributes, but each has its own unique identifier. Each identifier can only have one customer attribute data source tied to it. Target can only tie with a single identifier and a single customer attribute data source. The preferred method for configuring them is to manage them via the Marketing Cloud ID service in DTM, but they can also be added via JavaScript. Be sure to set the authorization state for your customer IDs to authenticated. The other authorization states, unknown and logged out, are available for future use cases. Now to add the customer attributes product configuration. Your organization's Marketing Cloud admin manages access to customer attributes. Adding a user to the customer attributes product configuration, or conversely, adding the customer attributes product configuration to a user grants them access to that capability. For your reference, note the following parameters and cookies you will see once you enable the Marketing Cloud ID service. Please use these charts at your convenience to compare against after you've implemented. In the last section, we discussed techniques for verifying the implementation was configured correctly. As it turns out, some of those core techniques are applicable on an ongoing basis as well. In order to continue to troubleshoot unexpected behavior that you may encounter as you use the People Core service, Marketing Cloud Audiences, and A4T activities. Let's walk through post-implementation troubleshooting techniques to address the more common issues you may encounter regarding the topics covered in this course. So now let's go over some common issues. Provisioning issues. So if you find that you cannot see target reports in analytics, this may indicate a provisioning issue. For example, if you cannot see the Adobe target or analytics for target reports in analytics, this may be a symptom of not being provisioned for A4T. So your strategy for resolution is to talk to your account manager, consultant, or client care to resolve A4T provisioning issues. Target and analytics communication issues. So some of your key symptoms would be, once provisioned, you now see target reports in analytics, but you are unable to see the data within those reports. There may be a few reasons for this, such as an implementation or a deployment issue, missing Marketing Cloud ID or supplemental data ID, outdated code versions, especially any code versions that do not support A4T, sending data to the wrong report suite, or sending data to the wrong data center. So to solve this, the majority of the time these symptoms indicate an issue with the People Core service implementation. Therefore, your troubleshooting steps begin with verification of that service. So what you could do is check the presence of both MCID and SDID in your analytics and target hits, ensuring they match across solutions on any given page. Verify visitors can qualify for the activity and audience by using the mbox trace. Check the audience and activity definitions. Check your code version. Consult documentation regarding code version requirements and verify yours meets or exceeds these requirements. Double check the report suite you selected in the goal and setting page of activity configuration. And then check your data center. Double check the tracking server you selected in the goal and settings page of activity configuration and on the page match and are correct according to whether your analytics company is hosted. Data expectation issues. So instead of seeing your user-friendly names for activities or experiences, you may sometimes see raw data in A4T reports, such as campaign or experience IDs, as opposed to the classified names. This indicates that although analytics and target calls are stitched together correctly and the data is flowing between these solutions, the analytics saint classifications are not being applied as expected. It is important to keep in mind classifications may take some time to process. For example, if you create an activity today and begin viewing the data within an hour, you may temporarily see the raw campaign IDs because the classification has not had time to process yet. So how do you fix this? You need to allow sufficient time for classifications to process. Recall when you first save an A4T test, there is an initial delay of approximately 12 hours for the classifications to propagate. Or contact client care after 24 to 48 hours if the classifications are still missing. Activity qualification or data issues for Marketing Cloud Audiences. Some key symptoms. If you have used the Marketing Cloud Audience to target an activity, but visitors do not see the experience as expected, visitors do not appear to be entering the activity, or activity entry is not successfully measured. So to resolve, as with target and analytics communication issues, being unable to qualify for Marketing Cloud Audiences or encountering issues related to analytics data measurement usually indicates an issue with the way the People Core service is operating. Therefore, your troubleshooting steps will involve what you would normally do for troubleshooting the People Core service. Check for the presence of both MCID and SDID in your analytics and target hits, ensuring that they match across all solutions. Verify visitors can qualify for the activity and audience, and then check the audience and activity definitions. Activity qualification issues for customer attributes. You'll know you have an issue here if you've used customer attributes in an audience to target an activity, but visitors do not see the experience as expected, or visitors do not appear to be entering the activity. To resolve this, you're going to verify customer attributes were received by target and are appearing in your profile using the mbox trace. In the previous module, we explained that the strategy for resolving many of the issues encountered with the People Core service, Marketing Cloud Audiences, and A4T will often involve taking a look at the mbox call as well as using mbox trace. Let's go over how to use the mbox trace in context of elements relevant to the People Core service, Marketing Cloud Audiences, and A4T activities. Mbox trace is useful for checking to see if you qualify for the Marketing Cloud audience or customer attribute you expect to qualify for. Use it to verify audience membership whenever you don't seem to be entering activities or experiences as expected. Now there are a few general steps to consider when verifying your activity using mbox trace. 1. Note the behavior. If you're not entering the expected activity based on your customer attributes or Marketing Cloud audience criteria. 2. Examine the activity, audience, or customer attribute definitions. 3. Obtain and launch the mbox trace authorization token, then launch it on your activity URL. Examine the mbox call, and then navigate to the appropriate breakdowns to verify whether or not you're qualifying as you should. Let's go ahead and go through 2 demonstrations here where we troubleshoot both a Marketing Cloud audience as well as a customer attribute. To begin, I've got a target test already created here where I'm targeting a Marketing Cloud audience, Nahida user 67. So to verify that this is set up and targeting appropriately, I'll snag the URL we're testing, paste it in a new web browser, then head back to target to grab the mbox trace token. To get that, I'll go to Setup, then Implementation, scroll down, click Generate Authentication Token. Once it's generated, I'll snag the URL parameter below, then paste that to the end of the activity URL. I'll right-click and select the Google Inspect tool, then hit Network. I'll type mbox in the filter box, and then refresh the page. Now I'll select the mbox call, and then Preview. Now I'll click Trace under the AAM section. I'll click Segment IDs. Now these are the segments that qualify hitting this activity page. Now, one sure way to know if I qualify for the correct activity is to navigate to the audience library to reference the audience ID to the one displayed here in the trace. So again, my audience was Nahida user 67. I'll select that. Now in the URL, it tells us what the audience ID is. So we've got 8390473. Let's go back to the activity URL. And there it is, 8390473. We've qualified for the activity and verified. Note, if you want to understand which audiences also qualify, copy one of the other IDs. Now let's paste it in place of the Nahida user 67 ID. Now check that out. We've got test segment 61 here as well. Let's go back to the activity page again. Now if we click campaigns, you'll see the 0 here, meaning that we've only got one activity entry on this page. So if I click that, you'll see all the details for our current activity we have set up. Now let's move to the second demonstration to validate our customer attributes. You'll notice that as we go along, this is a very similar process. As you can see, I have another test here that's a mirror copy of the previous one, just with updated targeting. I'm targeting specifically my user base that I've updated to the Marketing Cloud. While I have this set up, let me copy and paste this URL into a new tab. Now I'll pull up Excel so you can see specifically how this customer attribute was set up. Since my targeting is set up to target gold level customers, in order for me to qualify to be one, I need to fake it, if you will. Otherwise, there's no telling what my customers will see. Note, my customers, not my prospects that are hitting this site or viewing this activity. As you can see, row 2 is highlighted, and I'm going to snag that CRM ID to plug into my URL. Now, we'll basically go through the same process as our last demonstration. So I'll head back to Target, navigating to Setup, then Implementation. I'll regenerate an mbox trace token, copy, and then paste that in the activity URL we have open. Again, I'll right-click, hit Inspect, then Network, again typing mbox, and I'll hit Command R as the shortcut to refresh my page. Now let's select the mbox call. In the headers nav, I want to point out what we see here under the query string parameters. We've got our CRM ID authorization state set at 1. Now this has to be 1, otherwise you're not qualifying. As you can see right above it, this is the CRM ID we borrowed from our Excel sheet. Now you may have a different labeling method than CRM ID. That's just dependent upon how you labeled and uploaded your customer information. Next, let's click Preview, then Trace again. Now, campaign is all we really need to see here. So once we click it, you'll notice we've been served Experience B under branch name and our campaign name labeled here, along with our basic activity information. Now, all this information means is that we've qualified and verified we're being added as we should and being displayed the appropriate test experience for this user group. Now, if you notice that things are still going wrong with any of these indicators displaying as they should or shouldn't, you'll want to double check your collisions to make sure there aren't any competing priority tests taking precedence, or investigate your audience definition and activity definitions further. We've now come to the end of this course. To wrap up, we've gone over how the Adobe Marketing Cloud can be used to deliver a true 360-degree view of your visitors during your optimization activities. By leveraging the People Core service, as well as the integration between Analytics and Target to create A4T activities, plus Audience Library and the powerful third-party customer data capabilities of Audience Manager, you can now collaborate across your organization like never before in order to understand your customers and deliver more timely, resonant, and engaging experiences. Once again, my name is Jonathan Greiner, and I look forward to seeing you in some of my other courses.